So let's talk about switches. In any system, you have to get your tools in the right position if you want everything to run smoothly, and language in no exposition. When you acquire one, you have to make all the decisions about how that language works. But then, when you go and learn a new one, are the switches going to stay frozen in place? No, you can still happily flip to your heart's content. I am Mochi Lieberman, and this is Dulling Space. When we learn a second language, there's a lot to pick up: what sounds it use, what word it has, and how to mix them. All the ways it crafts its sentences and transforms that into meanings. Fortunately, we know a fair amount about how language can work already. We transfer over everything that we know about our first language or L1, and that works as this base from which we can build our new language or L2. And it really is everything. When you learn an L2, the entire grammar, your whole knowledge base about your L1 gets moved. Include in the that or all your parameter settings. Parameters are the ways in which language can differ one to the next. Do you move your questions words when you ask things, or do you leave them where they are? Do you always need a subject, or can you leave them out when it's clear from the context what you're talking about? Do you use stress in your words or not? Those are all things that you have to learn when you acquire your L1, and also to start out. It's all stuff that gets transferred over to the L1. But because that's the stuff that's first between language, if you want to speak as native like as possible in your L1, you are going to have to flip a lot of these switches. For a long time, that was a big part of the debate in linguistics. Can you actually reset those parameters, or are you ultimately stuck on whatever you had for your L1? Well, it could be there whether you can reset any different if you're a kid versus an adult. After all, kids have an easier time acquiring language in general, and particularly those deeper grammatical points that they can just pick up intuitively. As it happens, this is usually mapped to parameters, so even if we see transfer from the L1, it looks like kids should be able to subconsciously pick up this parameter difference and flip the switches, no problem. But does that actually happened? Let's take a look at a case study of a Turkish boy named Erdem who moved to the UK when he was 4. When he first started meeting with a linguist to look at his English, he only spent their months in the UK, of which 2 were spent mostly anyway home in a Turkish language. Informally, it had only been in English at nursery schools for a month or so, certainly that no English expert. Here the things Turkish and English differ in a headness, or the placement of the head, of synthetic phrase with respect to its complement. Take a sentence like cat caught no stop any from cheating. Since English it had initial that means the tense could come before in complement, the negotiation not stop show up before its object, any the precision from before cheating, and etc. That's how English works. First you get the head, and then the complement. Turkish on the other hand works actually the other one around. The head always shows up after the complement. So Erdem, when he was just starting out in English, was Yeah, making the assumption that it worked that way too in the first time he met with the researcher. He said things like something eating and a finish know where the header comes. Less different in the first sentence and then the negotiation in the second show up at the end, but English is amazingly full of evidence that it had initial every sentence that you heard where the verbs come before the object or a noun before a preposition is one more piece of data to tell you that English is the opposite of Turkish. So maybe it's not a surprise that Adam worked this out without too much difficulty. But here's the thing, he did a basically immediately sure, though the handful of initiations that he had in the first 3 months, whenever he spoken in English, uh, he went for the Turkish he final settings. But suddenly in month 4, his system flipped and he was making regular head initial and English sentences like "you eating apple" or "I not eat cornflake." He may not have had the grammar quite right yet, but he clearly had worked it. He did not out. He very reliably used the English settings, just like flipping a switch. The thing is, maybe we'd expect kids to be able to pull off learning new settings more easily. After all, kids are amazing at sucking up new language and implicitly know, knowing what they need to do match the community around them. But for adults, it's often more challenging to pull that off. Is that kind of parameters researching just for kids, or can adults do it too? Let's take a look at another word. Are there variations between language to address that question in language like English and Chinese? Verb stay down in the verb phrase. So in a sentence like John does not age much, the verb age stay below not, which is the negations. But some language like French and Japanese have verbs that age to move up in the tree. In a normal sentence, verb in this language move up this tense position, and if so, the some sentence in French would be John's failed pass pick up, and you can see the verb failed is before the negation pass, so it must have moved up. Or how about this? Both English and French can create yes or no question by moving the tense up before the subject. Now, English take a do and for that, so like do the first go to school and the verb stay low, but because French move the verb to tense. Is there when you want to move it for the questions? So like fun, let's face, l'école. All of these are because of the parametric difference in how strongly understands sentence when that verb in the tense position. Okay, so can do adult L2 learners reset this parameter and stick their verbs in the right place? Well, one researchers look at French learning of language by using a text that got them to create this question themselves, and I found that out of average 1,100 questions was about these L2 English speakers. All but two of them had the English word other without the French style rephrasings. And in preference ranking tags with the same participants, the able to learn consciously rejected sentence with different style negations or question in English such as the court likes not the forest or like Jan's swordplay. So they look at the flip to the English setting. Thank you.